All right, let's do this.
Yes, folks, we are still
Are we doing a podcast?
Are you sitting in front of me right now? And it's August 30th today. Can't believe it.
I forgot how to do these things.
I know. I had the, the luck to have your presence for a few days here. So I finagled you into doing a podcast. We have not done a podcast since before the summits. Yeah. I haven't put a podcast out, I don't think, since the end of May, beginning of June. And I really want to apologize again to everybody. I just keep apologizing for it. But we had a very busy June. And we're still kind of, I don't know about you, but just absorbing everything that happened in June with our summits and all the people we met and the amount of work and prep and then when it was over,
we took a leave of absence for a while just to recover.
Vacation. But nothing. And so the podcast, even though we love to do it,
I don't feel bad about not doing a podcast in June, but it's now pretty much September. It's been a little bit long.
And you're giving me a look like you haven't done a podcast.
I probably haven't done a podcast since
you haven't.
February.
No.
I don't know.
And I see you jumping out of bed every morning like, hell, let's do an HHH podcast. No, that's not happening. Honestly, to tell you the truth, and I think we've talked about this before, I just feel like sometimes there's so much crazy stuff going on in the world right now. To sit down and be focused on like a topic about hunting or health, or it almost seems minuscule. You know, it feels like we've been bombarded with things. It's just hard for me to know, like, what is information that I feel like people want to either escape or they want information about what's going on in the world, real information. And it just sometimes gets hard for me to think about what I want to talk about.
I think they get enough of that through other sources. I don't think we need to talk about, actually today's podcast is going to be about what's going on in the world right now, but it's pretty unique. And
so the reason you guys are getting a podcast right now, and not only are we going to put this podcast out, like I'm going to try to get it done, edited tonight and get it put out, is like it's a good cause, and it's very applicable to right now what's going on with the U.S. And Afghanistan. And
we were very fortunate to make the acquaintance of one David Pham, and it just so happens that he's got some inside information. He's doing good things right now with what's happening in the world. So it was fitting that we had a great conversation with him, and we're able to learn quite a bit about what's happening, what he knows, what he's doing, and how we can help and others can help as well.
Yeah, so if you don't know who David Pham is, you might not, because he's just a regular guy, superhero, that's been a Marine for a number of years, done a number of tours in Afghanistan. He's now retired into, what did he say, the Corps. And he called me this morning, or he sent me a text this morning asking me about some health information. And then he said, oh, by the way, I have this GoFundMe page where we have rescued 3 families this week out of Afghanistan. And I'm bringing 3 families. I'm going to try to help support 3 families to get on their feet here as refugees in the United States. And he sent me a bunch of pictures of the families. They have kids. There's one family that's 7 children. So those are big families, girls and boys. These are people that worked with David over there. These are Afghans who were interpreters and Afghan military. And he sent all that to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, do you want to do a podcast? And he was like, really? And I said, yeah, because I want to talk to somebody who's actually been over there. I want to talk to somebody who knows about what's going on the ground and help explain what is actually happening right now with not only getting American civilians out, but getting out the people over there that have helped us in the last 20 years that have targets on their heads. And
yeah, he's a great source of information with like actual things that are happening that, you know, our media happily ignores. They paint this very rosy picture of everything that's going on over there for political reasons.
I don't think there's any rosy picture
There's
going
not.
on right now.
Absolutely
I
not. But it's
there's-
worse than what they're letting us,
Yeah.
leading us to believe.
Yeah.
So no, it was a good conversation, and yeah, we learned quite a
Yeah.
bit about what's
And
happening.
we met David at one of our summits. So this is kind of the community that we have been trying to create over the last 3 years, and the people that are being drawn to it and that we're meeting and that we're becoming, you know, as he puts it, family in this podcast. And I mean, we really feel that way. Not
Yeah,
only
he's
that,
he's an exceptional person.
oh my gosh.
I mean, he was the second he showed up to the summit. He's that guy that's similar to Barney. He's very positive.
Yeah.
He's a leader. He's got a smile on his face, and he works incredibly hard
Yeah.
at everything. And he was there, eager to learn and have a little vacation, I guess, a little gift to himself.
And his story is so cool
Mhm.
because he is the direct result of a family member who fled from Vietnam in the years after the VietCong won the war and took over. And in this podcast, he is going to tell you the story of his mother and her family. And if you don't have any empathy and compassion after you listen to this story for people that are fleeing these war-torn countries where regimes are going to take over and absolutely destroy, you know, millions of people's lives. I don't know. There's got to be something wrong because the amount of empathy that you got to have to and strength to see these things, to live through it. You know, David has lived through. He was, you know, the product of refugees, and so he wants to help. And so I feel kind of like maybe we're haven't put a podcast out in 2 months, and now we're like, hey, here's a podcast. Go, you know, give your money. Well, a year ago, September last year, remember we had all the big fires, and we had a number of people here in our local community lose homes, farms, that kind of thing. And we donated money in September to that. And so I feel like it's so fitting a year from now that we have another cause that we can work with. And I think this is really spur of the moment, and it's hard for us to pull together any kind of quick deal on our side now that our company's grown. But we know that the community at large here is a community of people that a lot of you guys were military or are military. A lot of you guys maybe have seen these things that Dave is talking about. You're everyday good people that understand how important freedom is. And we're just asking that if you have anything, David talks about in here, ways in which you can help. And if you can, you know, I think it's hard when situations happen like this. A lot of civilians think, how can I help and what can I do? You know, what do I do? And do I give money? Do I, you know, and I think that, you know, if you have anything that you can help, please do. It could really transform these people's lives, their children's lives. And David just puts it so eloquently in here about the future generations of refugees and what they could possibly do for America in the future. So
Absolutely.
and yeah, I've got some podcasts that I've got ready to go out, and so I'll be putting some more out.
Well, we should start getting a few podcasts done. We're actually into hunting season, and we should have some pretty cool stories coming up if I guess if you wrangle me in between trips.
Well,
Hopefully we have some great stories. A lot of great hunts this year, and a lot of should be a lot of fun things happening, and hopefully things work out the way we hope. But good stories.
Yeah. Well, we owe everybody out there a whole bunch of gratitude. I think what I've learned from this podcast is probably gratitude is our best emotion. If we can be grateful for what we have, and if we have anything that we can share with others who haven't been so fortunate, that would be great. And we have gratitude for everybody listening, for all the people that came to the summits, for all the people that we met, like David, that have really changed our lives. We just want to say thanks. So we know you're out there listening still, and hopefully haven't left. But please, if you have any time today, please share this podcast. Share it on your social media. Share it with your friends and family. Send it to people that you know. I'll put some links in the show notes. Okay, so you can go to givebutter.com and you can just search for 3 Afghan heroes and their families. And it's great because David's last name is actually spelled Pham, Pham, because he is Vietnamese. But it's kind of a joke we all have now, called the family. Mm-hmm. And he has that 3 Afghan heroes and their families. Go there. I'll have it in the show notes. Also, if you want to reach out to David personally, he is an amazing person, and I know that he would welcome anybody's messages, DMs, any way that you can support. His Instagram is family, PHAMILY_man, family man, and you will see him there. All right. Well, thanks, babe. We got a podcast done. And hopefully everybody out there is staying safe, staying well, getting through these difficult times, taking a breather, going hunting like you, Lucky.
Go hit those elk woods.
That's right. Get outside. Gratitude to people like David.
Absolutely.
All right. Take care. So we met you because you signed up to come to the Western Hunting Summit this last summer. Mm-hmm. And as we were coordinating these events, which are pretty large events in our lives anyways, and having to coordinate 3 different summits with over anywhere from 40 to 75 people a summit, trying to get everybody, making sure that you had rides to where you needed, you had transportation, you knew where to come, because as you know, we had this kind of out in the middle of nowhere, outside a cell service range. And so I was very concerned that people were not going to be able to find it or get there. Now, Ryan was like, they got GPSs, they're hunters, they can figure it out. When you haven't been to where we're at, it's like people just think they're going to fly into Montana and take an Uber. I got so many emails. People were like, I'm just going to take an Uber. You might have been one of them. I don't know. But I was like, yeah, no, you can't take an Uber to where we're at. So I think we got down to the wire, and you had been communicating with me through email. Of course, I didn't know who you were at the time, but you were on the email list, and I sent emails out to everybody. You replied, okay, I'm going to rent a car. And then I think it was like, I can't rent a car. Like Bozeman was completely booked of rental cars for that weekend, or it was like
they were just gouging people, I think, at that point.
There was horrible stories of like people paying $1,600 for the weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you contacted me, said, I don't know what to do. And I was thinking it was between you and another guy. And I was like, hey, I know some other people flying at the same time. We'll figure it out. We'll get you there. And it just so happened that you flew in on the same plane with our contributors, Joe and Emily, and you guys hit it off. And then I got off work and you guys were like waiting in the parking lot for me with all your luggage and stuff. And then we headed out from there, and we went out to the summit. So that's how I initially met you. And you were so funny because you were like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in your truck. I can't believe I'm hanging out with you. And I was like, really, I'm not that special. And then I think Brian called on the phone.
Yeah,
we were sitting at the grocery store, and Brian called. And
if Brian called, that's probably an hour conversation.
Yeah. And then I was like, Brian, say hi to David, So it was really cool, but we hit it off right away. And I know that you're a Marine, correct? So I know that because my adopted grandfather was a Marine, and he survived Woshan. I think it's in Korea, the Woshan Valley or whatever it was, where they froze to death and all that kind of stuff. So when I was a teenager, I heard a lot of stories about that time, and Semper Fi was like everywhere. Semper Fi. So I noticed you sign all your emails with Semper Fi, and so
like Hill alluded to, like I met you at the summit, at the combo event, I believe it was, when you were there. And just so folks know, everybody, including Joe, who met you at the airport, Joe and Emily. I talked to Joe today, actually, and just had a conversation about one of his elk tags. And I said, oh, I get to talk to David tonight. And he was, man, the guy has nothing but good things to say about you. You know, he's heard your story. He got to spend some time with you. Everybody was so very much impressed with who you are, and just being around you. Very, very positive person. We got to see your leadership in one of our workouts, the Mountain Tough workout, where you just shined. You know, you were a proven leader, and you helped your team just crush that workout, and it was pretty cool to watch. And I don't know anybody there at the event that wasn't just absolutely blown away by you as a person. So.
Yeah. Well, very humbled, guys. Thank you. And just so the listeners know my relationship with all this, I was on deployment when I found out about you, right? When you're sitting on deployment and you're just like scrolling through YouTube videos when you're not out on mission, you know, you find out, find what to watch. But one of the things about hunting with me, and I think I had a little conversation with you about it and some of the other guys, it really saved my life years ago. I didn't grow up hunting at all. And then my upbringing is gonna definitely shine through during this conversation. But after my few deployments, came back and had a very tough time just mentally. Kept it all to myself because I think just the way we grew up is like always shine and always bring the light to somebody else. And I think a lot of times those people are the loneliest sometimes, right? And I just had a really rough 2019 and was out there in 2020. On deployment. So ironically, I missed all of initially COVID. I was just in the middle of the desert, so it was really interesting. And then I fell upon your videos and I binge watched. We're talking like binge watch. I went through I felt like I knew your family, right? And like when the kids' videos came out and all that, and then following you on Instagram, I saw the Western Hunting Summit, and that was my reward to myself. Like it was a 9-month deployment, and I found out about it I think halfway through the deployment, and I was just saving up. Right, I was like, I got to save up for this. I'm going to go meet these people, and not because so much that I want to learn how to Western hunt until its fullest. It's more so just to meet y'all. It was so incredible, and all the podcasts you've done, and absolutely. I'm not putting a plug in for Western Hunting Summit, but I am, just because it changed my life as well. Like it was a pivoting point. And at 33 years old, you don't normally could say that, right? Like you're like, oh, I had another pivot in my life. And I'm sorry I keep bothering Hill with text messages, but I'm like, Hill, how's this book? Is this a good book? Like, should I buy these oils?
I'm like, yeah, I should read that book. David, why don't you send it to me? Yeah.
So I'm cutting seed oils out. I'm just doing amazing, healthy things to my life beyond just the hunting. The hunting aspect of the summit was great, but just the things that I learned from y'all. And I'm so excited that you're doing the family summit now. I just can't wait. But
are we going to spell family camp with a PH?
Yeah,
just so folks know, David.
PH.
It's David Pham, PHAM.
I would gladly volunteer there. Oh my gosh, I would just please.
Well, if we do family camp, it's going to be quite an ordeal. So we're going to need lots of help.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would love to come just volunteer. But yeah, for the listeners, that was my relationship with Lampers, and everything you see on the videos is absolutely true, and just amazing people. And I just felt welcomed and loved, and it helped me transition to my next phase in life, out of the Marine Corps. I transitioned from 11 years of active duty to the reserves, just to try to start a family. And then in the midst of all this transition, everything with Afghanistan started. And I think that's why we're here today. So.
Yeah. So I got a text from you asking me about if I liked the book. Actually, that's what I got the text from. And then we started chatting, and then you said, hey, by the way, I have set up a GoFundMe for some families, refugees that have been, that you were part of a mission to get them out of Afghanistan. And right now we're sitting here, it's Monday, the 30th of August. And as we know, tomorrow is the end withdrawal date out of Afghanistan. And I think for those of us who are just civilians who don't, are not in the military, and we're only hearing tidbits of news from, whatever news media that we watch, or Instagram or whatever, we only get a very small piece of the story. And unfortunately, we get a lot of the negativity that's going on, which well deserved right now. It's I'm guessing you could probably back it up, but it's quite a catastrophe what's going on right now, I think, over there. And so when you sent me that text, I literally, David, we have not put a podcast out since before the hunting summits. I haven't done a podcast because it was summer and the summits were crazy, and we just felt like we needed time off. And then the next thing you know, it's hunting season, and okay. And I've been going, okay, I got to do a podcast. But when you sent me that message, I was just like, all right, we need to do a podcast about this, because I think it's really easy to separate yourself when you see these things on the media, and you don't have any personal experience with it, to say, oh, well, that's great for all those people out there that are working hard to help, but that's not me, or that would, whatever it is, it's easy to walk away. But I think we're seeing some really traumatizing things right now coming out of Afghanistan. As a woman as parents with daughters, we are absolutely horrified. Not only little girls, but little boys. Like, we're absolutely horrified to see what that country is going to turn back into after all the service that our men have put in there, the money, the time, and then the liberation that's happened for those females. It's heart-wrenching. And I had to have a conversation with Paley about it last week or 2 weeks ago when this whole thing started coming down. I was just kind of depressed about it. I thought, my gosh, how do you help? What do you do? How do you even know where to start? And I had to explain to her, like, the freedoms that women and children don't have under the Taliban. And she was just looking at me like, what? And I did say to her, from my understanding, at your age, you could be married off right now to somebody against your will and against my will. And she was just like, she couldn't comprehend that. So it like breaks my heart that I think so many Americans, their heart is breaking for these people over there. And so I wanted to get you on a podcast, because I think that we have an amazing community, as you know, with the Western Hunting Summit. We have a large community of military, first responders, people that care, blue collar workers.
Care is, that's our community.
People that care, and they don't know what to do. Like, they're just sitting there like I am, like, how do I even help? Because they're a civilian or whatever, and they don't know all the logistics of how this works. So this is why we have you on today.
And I'll, exactly what Hill said. I think a lot of people here, we see these little tidbits from the news, and like she said, whatever news outlet you're looking at, I don't know how you cannot be angry, disgusted, sad. It's just an absolute atrocity for what's going on, and these poor people that are over there right now. A lot of these people are young. Maybe they've been told what it's like to live under Taliban rule, but a lot of them never have. When it was liberated, that was a long time ago. We've been there a while, and they haven't had to live under Taliban rule. So just like when we talk to our kids now, it'd be very similar, like to go back to that, or to jump into that kind of a situation would be, couldn't even imagine it.
Yeah. So I'm just writing down some points you brought up that I think, hopefully I could address. And please, before this is over, I want all questions answered as much as I can.
Okay.
So should I start?
Tell us your story, David,
Yeah,
and
let's hear
why
yours.
this is so personal to you, because I think that will really get across why you're doing what you're doing.
Okay. So my story, and I always tell people I can't tell my story without telling my mom's story. So people say history repeats itself, and I pray to God that it never does, and I never imagined it would. But my mom was a little teenager, a little girl in Vietnam in 1975. So she watched the last aircraft leave Saigon, right? And before that, I mean, she was a witness to atrocities of war. I mean, she was seeing, gruesome dead bodies when she was a young girl, right? You can't imagine Bailey like just having to be exposed to that, or Tanner. Just, oh God, I can't even imagine it. But that's what my mother was exposed to. She was one of 10, and her family did everything they could to protect her. But after 1975, and I think this is what people are going to see coming up for the next several years, she was actually stuck in Vietnam for 6 more years. Her mother, which was a total matriarch and total badass, she was able to save up some money and try to help her children escape. So all 10 children at some point tried to escape. 6 of them were caught and brought back or thrown into re-education camps, which is where they got tortured and beaten by the VietCong. And 4 siblings, my mother, 2 brothers, and my aunt, they're roughly around, my mom was 22 at the time. This was 1981, so 22 years old. She walked, I call the story an ounce of gold, but my grandmother saved up an ounce of gold per child, and that's the cost of a life back then. So you basically packed everything you can, just like in little bags, and you couldn't carry luggage because the VietCong or the government would think that you're escaping, so they'll catch you. So you just had plastic bags of clothes or a grocery bag of clothes. She walked about 30 or 40 miles down from Saigon to the Mekong Delta. And if you look on a map, you can kind of see the distance. And they waded out into the water, just like a little bay area, and then jumped on this boat. It's a fishing boat. Probably about a 30-foot fishing boat. Paid the boat lady the little tablet, an ounce of gold. And by the time they got there, there was about 50 people on this thing. So, Ryan, I know you fish a lot, right? Trying to
Sure.
50 people on this little dinghy, yeah, right. So, and all they had, and they just turned the engine on, the motor on, and actually the boat was shot up a few times, and then the engine broke, so they floated out at sea for 2 weeks. During this time, they only had a bowl of rice to eat every day.
Oh gosh.
Like just one bowl of rice every day. Like and people would pass away, and they'd have to throw them overboard because you can't keep them, right? Again, 22 years old, right? There's kids on board, and my cousins were on board, right? My cousins at that time were from the ages of 5 to like 2, and the pirate ships would hit them up. So pirate ships would take some of the women and children, take some of the money, and then they would leave. So you're going through all this, and if everybody wants to look up the history of it, look up Boat People Vietnam, and you're just gonna see pictures and everything else, and they're literally falling off the boat. Eventually, a merchant ship picked them up, brought them to a refugee island, and they lived on the island for a year in these tents. And after that, one of the humanitarian aid organizations in the State Department basically came in and sponsored them, and they flew to America with nothing but the clothes on their backs and a few tablets of gold or whatever they're able to sew into their clothes. So it's really genius. They would sew little pockets in their clothes, so whenever people take your money, they couldn't find all the treasures hidden. So they get here. I think they had a phone number for a lady that was like a distant aunt, and they started in New Orleans, and then my mother met my father there. Had my sister. Eventually moved to California. Had me. I was born in California. Became a single mom at that point. So barely speaking English. Grade school, single mom. Just knew how to work her butt off and take care of us. And then she eventually moved to Savannah, Georgia, where one of my uncles ended up. And that's where I grew up and eventually, you know, wanted to serve and give back. And that's why I joined the Marine Corps, right? I figured that'd be the right thing to do to defend this freedom and everything that was given to us by good Americans back during from the 75 to the 80s, right? Oh, and a little bit of perspective as well so what I really want to focus today to is just the human aspect. I don't think we're going to talk politics at all today. Like there's so many forums discussing politics and why this happened and why that happened. I just want to tell you the story of the plight of a refugee. My mother, when she came to America, wasn't able to communicate with my grandmother for 3 years. So empathizing with my grandmother, who's this amazing lady, she sent her children off on a boat, and 3 years later did not know if they lived. And then finally got a letter, because this was 1984 at that point, right? You're not just ringing a number, or texting. So that was what they were dealing with. And then so I ended up wanting to serve in the Marine Corps. And then my sister did amazing things with technology and worked for Google for a while. And then it was her time to serve as well. So she worked for the United States Digital Service for the White House. So, you know, I love telling this part of the stories because it just made my mom proud, right? I come to this country with literally nothing. And because of the good graces of the American people and the freedoms that we have and the gratitude that we have, we were able to work, and she was able to work and take care of us. And then, you know, hopefully the gift that we were able to give back to her was just our service to the country that gave us this freedom. And so my sister worked for the White House and I worked for the Marine Corps. And then, you know, just very humbled and try to serve and give back. And to answer your question, like why this really matters is because this is happening again. God gave me an opportunity, and I'll talk about my faith a lot. You know, I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but I will. God put me in a position to take everything that was given to me by amazing Americans to give back to the same refugees that are coming over. And you know, it's gonna be an emotional podcast. All the pictures I sent you of the kids, those are all my buddy's kids. One day, one of those little boys, and I'm gonna be recruiting hard, might become a Marine one day, right? Or one of those little girls is a teacher. They want to be teachers, you know, they're telling me. But you know, one of those days, those girls want to be a teacher. But what we are doing as Americans now will define us. And we are giving that little young girl, an opportunity to choose what she gets to do. And the girls and boys in Afghanistan, they will not get to choose what they do. And that just saddens it. So, you know, I think that's the drive that I have, and that's why I'm being as relentless as I can with this mission.
So is your mother still alive?
So in 2013, after we got back from a deployment to Afghanistan, about a year later, was it a year later? Yeah, about a year later, we found out my mom had leukemia. I was the first one to find out. And talk about a guy who thinks he was a man and came out from combat and is battle hardened. I basically broke down in the hospital, and it was just, you know, it was your mom, right? So, but yeah, no, 2013, she contracted leukemia. We fought for 3 years, and she fought valiantly. And then a month after, or 3 years later, a month after my sister had her first granddaughter, right, my mother's first granddaughter, she passed away.
Mm.
But I think her legacy is my responsibility. And the more I share my story, the more I could hopefully use it to inspire others to never give up. And hopefully I can inspire this generation of refugees and even Americans to have the empathy for these people. Right. So, yeah.
So with that story, tell us what has been going on in Afghanistan right now with the refugee situation.
Yeah. So, well, the government, got unstable, and a lot of the refugees felt at risk. So there's really 3 families that I'm directly in communications with right now. One of them was my interpreter. He served in the Afghan military. He later on laid down his rifle, transitioned to be an interpreter, and in 2012 became my interpreter and saved our lives. And when I say this, I mean, we're just walking sticks out there without somebody who speaks the language. So this guy, literally every single mission he did, he was glued to my hip or glued to one of my squad leaders' hips. And he gathered intelligence. He was able to talk to the villagers. He was able to build relationships. I mean, we were entering into villages, and nothing on my part, but what my non-commissioned officers, my NCOs, what they did was they brought peace to these villages. And I'm so proud of my Marines and my corpsmen. And it was because of these interpreters. So I think there was a big push whenever this was happening. I think the news came out where it's like, oh, the U.S. is bringing 2,000 interpreters back and protecting them. So that should have been the first clue, right? That something was unstable, that we had to pull people who supported America out of the country.
Right.
Talk about another blessing. In May 2021, my interpreter reaches out, says, "Sir, can you write me a letter? Like, I'm trying to get a special immigration visa or immigrant visa." And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, type that thing up. The least I can do is write you a letter, right? And then send it over. And then I believe a few other news guys wrote him letters too. And he got to America on August 10th. So 3 weeks ago. And then the country begins to fall apart.
Right.
So that was the first blessing of all this. He brought his daughter, who's 7, and his son, who's 5, and his wife. So the majority of his family is still back in Afghanistan. And again, I'll keep all identities private just for the protection. And then on August 16th, I get a Facebook message of all things. Right? I hate social media. I think we all do in this group, right? But we do know it brings a goodness.
It does.
So I get this message from another buddy who went to school in America with us. He went from Afghanistan to America, went to military school with me. That's how I met him. 2 lines. I'm in danger. Next line, do you know anybody at the airport? And at this time, we didn't know what was happening yet. The news wasn't really, they're saying they're sending military folks in, but it wasn't as viral as it became. And I hit up some of my mentors just because there wasn't an urgency at that point. And I was like, "Sir, gentlemen, if you got this message, I want to help, but I just want to get your opinion. Like, what is your opinion to do that?" They're like, "Dave, if you have the means to do it, do it." So at that point, and you already know my story, my history, I was let off the chains. I found every single contact that I've ever made or relationship that I've ever built throughout the years. And I basically gave back every single golden ticket that I was ever given. Senators and representatives and whoever I could touch, or generals and just people I've been blessed with in my life. I sent them the message. I sent them the full synopsis of what happened and what I need to do to try to help them. And eventually there's some amazing teams. You probably heard about them, these underground teams. And again, those are the heroes, right? Those are like nothing I did. It was just, I was there to work with these people and those are the heroes that got them out. I mean, yeah. So
I heard today on the news
Yeah.
500 people these underground military have saved.
Yeah.
And gotten them out. These are just American citizens, I think. These are not even the Afghans. These are just people. I mean, from what I understand, from what I heard today, Biden doesn't have any plans to get Americans out of Afghanistan. I don't know if that's true, but these special op forces, they think have gotten at least 500 people that would have been left behind. Why are we leaving American citizens behind? And then on top of it, you have these Afghans who have done all this
Who've
work for us.
helped
Like
so much.
you can't even fathom like the amount of people that have to get out of there.
Yeah.
And our government is like, what is going on? So these special forces, it sounds like they're really just taking control and trying to do what they can.
Yeah, and they're heroes and they're incredible. And that's just them. I'm talking thousands. I think the estimate that I got from my friends at State Department is 5 or 50,000 refugees that are coming. But from what I know, from what I've seen and observed from the outside looking in, thousands were saved by civilians behind computers.
Mm.
So
wow.
So that's the truth, right? It's and that's what people don't know. It's yes, the military is doing things, but there's so many good-hearted Americans, hackers, and folks that helped out. They basically were contacting these Americans or interpreters, and there's a lot of interpreters that reached out to the veteran friends, and you probably saw this on the news. And then the veteran friends had no outlet, but there's these groups that stood up. I think Digital Dunkirk was one of the things that you saw. And what would happen was these groups of civilians would just whatever things they could latch on, buses, taxis, like underground tunnels to sneak them through the Taliban checkpoints. They would find them and build maps, right? And they would send them maps and like, hey, follow this route, right? Go talk to the Marines, right? The Marines at the gate, 2nd Battalion, 1st Marines, heroes. 1st Battalion, 8th Marines, heroes. Those pictures of them pulling up babies is just the tip of the iceberg. And we could talk about all that too, and what I think we need to do with the orphans. But they were vetting and they were pulling people in. Department of State, so many people were involved in this, and it felt like just normal people doing it. It wasn't like this massive government mission. It was just Marines got the mission done. 82nd Airborne Army got the mission done. Special Forces, 1st Battalion, 8th Marines. So empathetic too, because I'll put you in the position. These are 18 or 19 or 20-year-old. I want to call them kids because we feel old, right? They're standing at the gate with these Afghan refugees, and this is the human aspect behind it, pleading to be rescued, and getting crushed by the mob because there's just mobs pushing in, and to them, being crushed by a mob is better than living under Taliban, right? I just imagine that the plight that they're experiencing. Children, and Marines, that's why the children are being pulled up, because they were getting crushed, and Marines are just like, give me as many as you can. And, the children is just, I think, the worst part. But after a certain point, because of the arbitrary 31st of August, right, we had to get ready to pull everybody out. So eventually the gates had to close at some point. And, and then it slowly dwindled down to only American citizens and, only permanent residents or whatever it is. So.
And yet we know through all of this that everybody that helped us, everybody that fought alongside and through all these years, they're high risk. Not making it.
I'll pull up a message as I'm talking as well. So anybody, they have a roster.
They do.
When they talk, there is a list of addresses and people, and they know where these people live. And one of my buddies who escaped, thank God, and is in Qatar now with his family of 7, he had to leave his house because they were going door to door, and if they found him there, it wouldn't have been good for the family. So they basically had to say that, dad abandoned us and we don't know where he is. So, so the Taliban would leave, right? Um, and so as these days tick by, like we would send them out, like, can you leave the house? Are they finding out where you're at? Like we need to find you an outlet for you to escape. And eventually, whatever mechanism that we help them, because I don't want to put anybody at risk or expose what happened, but they were able to escape to the flight line. And it's this heart-wrenching moment and we're on WhatsApp. We're like, it's WhatsApp and Signal. That's the only way we could have communicated.
Sure.
And I know, and I was just waiting. It's like just taking, hey, we're leaving the house, and we would wait hours and just wait for them to traverse the Taliban checkpoints, being checked at every station, hiding their documents, and then, hey, we're at the link-up point, we're waiting. And then hours later, and then I remember the message that I got. It was, we're in, and then it was just, I was in tears. That was just one family. That was one family, and I was in tears. And then, we had a few more families in. So my two buddies who were Afghan military, they got their families in and speak fluent English. They speak English better than some Americans. Like they speak better English than I do. So just incredible people. But what was so amazing about them is as soon as they got in, without hesitation, they reached out and was like, Dave, it worked for us. Get other people in. So, we did what we can and we communicated. And like I said, the civilian teams out there that were behind computers and building these rat lines to get in, or these routes to get in, they're the true heroes, because a lot of these Afghans were just in a panic mode. And they weren't able to get in. So that was kind of the first part of this journey. And then August 26th happened, right? So Marines are, kissing babies and doing everything else. And then here's a message I found. And it's written in, translated Afghan, right? So this my house, since they get to Kabul, they search 3 times, asked a lot of questions about me. With blue shirt, is my son crying? They took my weapon and my car. They took everything. That was just one of the messages, and it's a picture of his son just crying next to these men, right? Actually, I wouldn't even call them men. And interrogating these families. So whatever they're saying, like that's a first-hand witness experience of they're going house to house and they know where they live.
Right.
So that kind of goes into how all this happened. And again, who knows who set off the bomb, right? I'm not looking against the politics behind that. But essentially a bomb was set off outside the gate. And it was the gate that was being used to pull a lot of these people in through all these underground missions. And then, I had buddies in that unit. And we didn't get word for a long time, because what happens when there's an event like that and there's casualties, they shut off all communication so that the names don't get out. Because can you imagine if a family found out that their son or daughter passed away over social media? Because it's kind of the world we live in, because everybody feels like they're doing their part by, hey, in memory of this person. It's like, okay, do the families even know yet? And they just found out on a Facebook page. So what they do is they shut off all communications. So for 3 or 4 days, I think a bunch of us didn't know if our brothers or sisters survived. And that was crushing. That was absolutely crushing. One of my brothers was hit. His daughter, my niece, is due September 24th. So thank God he's alive. But there are many others that aren't, and there's 13 that passed away. So, I just ask for thoughts and prayers from everybody who's watching and listening to this. But, that's the caliber of people that we're dealing with. So now kind of moving forward, what do we do? To answer your question, right?
Yeah.
Now that we know the story. So a lot of them, so what's happening now is they're dispersed throughout the world. And the State Department and the good people of the State Department are doing their best to pull folks to America. But it takes time. It takes security vetting. It takes medical vetting. We're going to have some debates and comments about like the vaccine, but I just got a message from Qatar from my buddies that they're giving everybody vaccines to include pregnant women before they could come to America, right? So like that's ground truth. Like that is happening. And we won't, get into all that, but it's just everything. So they need to be vetted and they need to do all that before they come to America. So trace it back to my interpreter who made it here, thank God. I kind of have a perspective of what's going to happen. So these folks are going to be given a small stipend, given an apartment or a place to stay for a few months, 3 months, given a social security card, given a driver's license, and then 3 months later, told good luck and put them out to the workforce. Crazy enough, and I'm gonna have to tell the Vietnamese story from this. So there's 500,000 Vietnamese people in Southern California in one little area of Orange County called Little Saigon. I don't know if you knew that, but if you want to go there for the best Vietnamese food, go to Garden Grove, California. That happened, and the genesis of that, and everything traces back to a reason, is because in 1975, 100,000 refugees flowed through New Orleans and flowed through Camp Pendleton, California, which is just south of this area. And then what happened was the good people of California pushed them up to this little area and just allowed them to flourish and grow and prosper. And now there's 500,000 Vietnamese people down there, and there's Vietnamese senators, and there's Vietnamese doctors, and there's Vietnamese everything. You go down there and you might not even see an English word in some areas, but there's an entire communities that are paying taxes and supporting and being an American and the gratitude. So the Vietnamese people are some of the most patriotic people that I know. Some of the most patriotic people I know. There's no griping and moaning and saying this and that. They just work and they appreciate what they have. And I'm telling everybody listening now who has any inkling of or concern with this immigration stuff, the Afghan refugees will work their butts off because they know what they're getting, and they're getting freedom, which I think we, as a lot of Americans, have taken for granted and forgotten. My buddies were at the refugee camp for 2 days, and different from my mom back in '81. 2 days later, they sent me their CV and asked them to find them a job while still on a refugee island, right? And we have all this unemployment, and these guys were like, "Please find me a job. I have to take care of my family. I want to pay taxes." So that's kind of where I am trying to support. And, we talk about how to support. And again, like I said, we are taking these refugees, putting them in an apartment, not giving them a car or anything. And then several months later, we're setting them off. So I think a lot of people have a lot of good intentions. But I'm going to get them a bed. I'm going to get them pots and pans. And I think the perspective people need to have is they don't have a vehicle. So let's just say you just want to move 2 streets over. And this is the paradigm shift in the perspective is if you don't have a vehicle to move 2 streets over, imagine that move, right? And having to maybe potentially rent a U-Haul or something, but that's just, so if we give them more things, it's just going to get more difficult for them to move around. And they'll graciously take it, right? They're going to graciously, because all they have right now is the clothes off, off their backs right now. And the way we support, I think, is money, is these refugee organizations. I think the more we give to these organizations, the more stipend they can give to these refugees. And I hate to say like money's going to fix it, because I think we've all heard the adage, and people are going to say this, well, you know, if you give a man a fish, he's full for a day. You know, you teach a man how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime, right? But I think there's a time for that. And these people are not going to take advantage of that. I mean, they're gonna want to land. We just need to give them a good start, and then they're going to work their butts off, and they will learn how to fish.
Absolutely.
And they're not going to stop, and they're not going to give up, because they have learned what true evil is, or they know what true evil is, and they've been given a second chance to escape.
Can I bring up a point, David? I just have this interesting question. Please. There's a lot of debate, like you had mentioned earlier, the immigration thing, and like the thoughts about immigration in this country, and you know how I think there's a lot of talk now about terrorism again, and you know, how are we vetting these people, and how do we know that they're not coming in and trying to radicalize people, and how do we know that they're not terrorists? And I think that, again, being a very isolated country, I consider America a very isolated country. It's like we're fighting all these foreign wars.
Well, I think we've been insulated from a lot of the atrocities and evil that's out there.
Really only lets us see, and now social media is even being censored. So it used to be, I feel like you could get a lot of information from social media about what was going, like Iran and all these different countries, what was going on. But now it's like so much is censored against what they want us to see. And so how do we, you know, a lot of people are going to have the question of like, well, that I really want to help these people, but how do we know these people that lived in these terrorist countries, quote unquote, aren't going to want to come here and be terrorists themselves, or bring Sharia, or bring all these things that we have a lot of fear about in this country, and a lot of negative connotations sometimes. And so, and this may be getting too much into the religious aspect of it, but I consider America a very religiously diverse country. We have multitudes of different religions here. But we do have a lot of Judeo-Christian values in this country. And so I think a lot of people tend to go the route of where could this lead? What could be the bad road that this could lead? And so just coming from you, having met these, you know, a lot of these people and seeing this, I guess.
Yeah. Well, first, I mean, we kind of talked about earlier too, right? Like these people were literally getting crushed to escape that. That's one aspect. And I'm not going to be ignorant to it, that there will be some folks that snuck in. All right. I mean, there's going to be some, again, I'm going to say this, repeat again. They snuck in, ones, twosies that are spies, and that they will have pretended to be another person, or they have pretended to slip in across the line. That happens. There's evil people like that in America. I mean, we have little pockets of organizations of people like that in America, right? And they're Americans. So I'm not going to be ignorant to that. But I can tell you from my experience that 99% of these people were literally getting crushed to escape that tyranny, and they never want to see it here. And like, hey, what's David's credibility to say that? I don't know. I don't have credibility. Like I don't. I just know, right? It's like I live with these people. I love them. I'm talking with them. Like they're looking for freedom. I don't have any political background to say that that otherwise. But when you know people, right?
Yeah.
And just looking at it the way it is.
Well, Judeo-Christian values, what is one of the highest values is to help your neighbor. So the whole idea that you can't trust people, I think this is where we've gotten in the world, is like people are just so afraid of each other. And again, America being a very isolated country, we just, we get fed so much fear. And I mean, the last year, if you haven't been fed a good dosing of fear in the last 18 months, I mean, I don't know where you've been, right? You've been in a good place, not listening to the news.
I know.
But we're bred on that. And I think so.
No fear.
Yeah, well, we still get it here, but but it's easy for me to disassociate because I live in a beautiful place. I can, I have so much freedom here. I don't worry about things like my daughter's not being able to go to school, or my daughter's being married off to men that just show up on the doorstep and take them, or not being able to be educated and not have a job. Like these kinds of things. I've never had to worry about that. Even though I do believe right now a lot of our freedoms are being destroyed by what's happening in the world, and we won't get into that. But I think that as the Judeo-Christian value does say that, we should take care of our neighbors. And this is why we are such a diverse country. And and I mean, a lot of the immigrants I know work way harder than any American that, I've worked in the service industry. I've worked in, some of these jobs people will work for almost nothing. I wouldn't do those jobs. It's commendable. So I think that we have to remember that.
I do have a plug for that though. Americans working hard. I would say when I went through Bozeman TSA, there's a point to this. It's probably one of the most stringent TSAs in America. It is. Because people are so hardworking in Montana that they take their job so seriously. I mean, I thought I was going to get taken in the back room and poke, but I'm just going to put a plug in. There are very hardworking Americans.
So we have a theory about Bozeman TSA that they train people here because it's a small airport and there's not a huge amount of traffic. It's been like this for long time.
There's hardly ever anybody there.
5 in the morning when I traveled a lot, I'd go at like 5 in the morning. I'd be like, bored. There'd be 2 of us in there. And they would be like going through our bags, patting us down. We'd be like, what are we doing? And so we always had this theory that they must train people here for it because we've been to Seattle and it's like, see you later. And Bozeman is like, they are hardcore.
Yeah.
But maybe it's work ethic. Let's take the work ethic.
Yeah, I know it is. It's a great book. I'm going to let you listen to something. And please give me 2 minutes here. And I hope it comes through the audio fine because it's recorded. And by the end of this, I want you to tell me if the person is a Christian or a Muslim.
I have been commander also for my team. So most of the time I was briefing them on things, so I was giving them speeches. So my soldiers, I was trying to give them morals, and I was telling them to be strong, and always help others, Everybody can do things for themselves, but people who are the best are the ones who help others, So as I was saying, I was telling them, God himself is not going to come down to the ground to help someone. God, when they say that God sends angels to go help others. So angels are humans that are being sent by God, that are being told by God, that is God that puts it in their heart and in their mind to do this, and they're the ones going to help people. So I say God is not coming down to the ground, neither the angels. He makes angels out of humans to support, to help people in need, and also people in people to help, So yeah, this is what I was teaching them. Also my kids, my brothers, I was telling them, when you guys can, please help if someone needs your help, So yeah, I know You are an angel in human's body, and God has sent you for me and other guys too. Thank you, brother.
Mm.
Wow.
You can't tell.
Yeah. So again, that message is for me, just for me, right? It was for everybody who helped and everybody who can help. That is one of them who just escaped from Afghanistan, is in Qatar right now. He recorded that with unprompted, and I'm just getting emotional now because I just feel humbled that God's even using me as His tool right now, and I'm just glad that He gave me the opportunity. But he's Muslim. He is 100% Muslim, like alhamdulillah, like praise God type of person. So I think to your point, right, we're going to ask this question of a lot of people. And I think people need to start realizing that this world is very, very similar. We are very similar as humans. No matter what faith walk we have, I think we need to realize that us as humankind believe in a higher power, be it the green energy, the universe, Jesus Christ, God from, the Hebrews, or Muslim God. Like it's all, we believe in something spiritual, right? Buddhism, or atheism, it's something spiritual. These people are no different. We're not getting hordes of extremists coming over. We're getting hordes of people, of humans, who are seeking an opportunity so that their children could find a future. And that's all they want. My buddy, who is a very, performed magnificently in the military and served a lot of people, and that's his voice, and he helped a lot of people. He's like, I'm going to go to Texas and drive big trucks. And I was like, you want to drive big trucks? And he's like, yeah, I heard they make a lot of money. I was like, oh, like not big tire trucks, like a semi truck, right? Like he's going from a high level position where he led men in combat to, hey man, just get me like a trucking job. I just want to make money to take care of my kids. So to answer your question, Hill, like all the folks worried that there's some chaotic thing that's about to happen because all these refugees are coming in. I challenge them, right? I challenge them with that recording. Please listen to that and rewind it and listen to it again. The voice that you heard was the voice of a Muslim man trying to come here and do anything. And I know he'll work anything so that his kids can have a future. And I hope that answer is good enough for them. I don't know. I can't convince them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I was just being kind of the devil's advocate there as far as like what we hear and what we think. And, I haven't been to the Middle East, but I worked in Turkey a few times, and that's a Muslim country. And I mean, the Turkish people are just so amazing and loving, and, it's just a different culture than we have here. And that's just how the world is. Everybody's different. But like you said, he said, like, we're all humans and we all have the same needs and desires. And especially when you have a family, I mean, you go from being very selfish to selfless because you think about your family, like you would do anything for them, even give them away so that they could live like your grandmother did. I mean, that is like beyond the ultimate sacrifice,
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I think most people with their eyes wide open right now, or for many years in the past even, if they're being honest with themselves, they see what folks who have come here from other places, how hard they're willing to work. You can say whatever you want, but they're some of the hardest working folks. Now, I love this country. I love America, yada, yada, but we are the most spoiled, getting to the point of downright soft and lazy country on the planet right now. And how can you say that somebody's willing to do whatever Like, these people are willing to do whatever to come here, to actually contribute, pay taxes, work hard, get away from that type of an environment. Who wouldn't respect that? Um, you know, we got we got to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
We've had it so good for so long here that we are spoiled. We are willing to stay on unemployment for way too long and suck off the tit of the government. As easy as that is, it's not respectable. And I will 100%. My opinion is, yeah, these people who are trying to come here or who have come here from these other places that actually have hardships, and governments that are
Tyrannical.
tyrannical is a good word. They'll do whatever it takes, and they're willing to work hard, and they want to raise their family and do it
Yeah.
right. And we have a place here that we can do that. Unfortunately, a lot of Americans have never seen that, and so they're blinded by how good we have it. They just have no idea.
Yeah. And to be honest, hopefully listening to this gives them some empathy, right, and compassion.
Right.
And to one of your points earlier, or it was, I think it was just a passing comment, but you know, we have been here for 20 years. We sacrificed a lot of lives, and a lot of my brothers, and people are asking, like, was it a waste? I have junior Marines. I call them junior Marines. They're probably in their 30s now, but young guys who, and I want them to listen to this message, who defined their life by those 4 years they spent in Afghanistan, because it was so rewarding. They were helping kids, and I have photos with Marines holding kids and helping them. And then, yeah, we've got to do the ugly Marine Corps stuff sometimes, right, to get rid of evil. But for the most part, these men perform valiantly in combat, and you know, their kids are calling them heroes, and they live with that for the last, I would say, 9 years ago, right? And that's what kind of they set up themselves up for success in life, is because they pivoted on there. And I think a lot of them now, because the media is so negative, oh, it's a failure, oh, we let them down. So what are these guys out there believing now, right? They're thinking to themselves, was those 4 years of my life that defined who I was that all a waste? And I tell them no. I vehemently tell them no, because we made those villages peaceful. We saved those families, and we gave an opportunity when we were there. But also, to the next point, because of how those men and women performed and how they acted in the face of evil in front of all these Afghan civilians, their purpose in life for these last 20 years was to show all these refugees that there is a better life in America. You don't see, and again, you don't see refugees fleeing to Russia or China,
Right.
or they're not going there in hordes. They're coming to America where they have this belief of freedom. But if you only watch the news and like, would you really want to come here? It's not really that. It was, they watched and witnessed young men and women, American children, deployed to Afghanistan, treated them with love and humility and loyalty, and gave their lives for them. So they're like, why don't we come to that country? Because those men and women of America are made of something different. So I say to all those Marines and sailors and armies and airmen, and who are questioning right now if what they did in Afghanistan meant anything. I'm telling you it is, because if you go to my page where I'm raising money, there's a video, you could look at their faces. These little kids, look at every single one of those kids' faces. And because of the way you acted and you performed yourself, and how loving you were to these people, they want to come to this country because they want a piece of that love, right? So I think that's another point of, it wasn't for nothing. 20 years wasn't for nothing.
No, yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, because that is what kind of the overriding theme is right now, is you hearing that from one side, I guess, is, yeah, it all was for nothing, but it's a good point.
How many people said Vietnam was a failure? I'm sitting in front of you right now as a Christian American Marine Vietnamese descendant 50 years later. Like with some of the amazing people, family now in my life, the Lampers. How is that in any godly universe possible? Right? This podcast is 50 years in the making. Starting from when my mom left a war-torn country seeking freedom. So if you're a service member that thought, and a lot of Vietnamese guys, Vietnam vets, like regret it, they hurt themselves, right? Because they couldn't deal with it. So I'm telling those Afghan vets now, like, there was a purpose. And I find every single Vietnam vet, I'll tell them the story so that they could just give me a hug, because I love those hugs. But like, one day, veterans of Afghanistan and Iraq, you will have an Afghan child thank you when they see you wearing that hat. Or you will be at your grandchild's Marine Corps recruit training graduation, and you're gonna see a family dressed in Afghan garb, and you're like, oh, that's weird. And you're gonna ask them, and they're gonna say, we escaped in 2021. And thank you if you served. Because our son or daughter is stepping across the parade field as private first class, whoever, an Afghan refugee descendant. We never know what's going to happen, but what we know now is that we have to be good to these people and we have to serve them.
Right.
And treat them like brothers and sisters. I'm sorry, Hill.
It's heavy stuff, you know?
I know.
Like, my uncle, my aunt's husband, did 3 tours in Vietnam, and he was a helicopter pilot. So I don't know what his lifespan was, but it was like a minute or something. He was like, that experience, I think, really shaped his view of America and how we have become so selfish here, and we forget these things like you're talking about, you know? And we're just so willing to give up our freedoms for what, you know, nowadays. And I feel like there's a lot of, like you said, you know, the mirroring that's going on right now, what happened with Vietnam and Saigon, and what's happened here and what's happening with Kabul, and like people and the American media is almost like vilifying it now. It's like making these young men think that they've done something bad, and kind of the same thing that my uncle came back to and had to deal with. And you know, we don't take into account that also, you know, men may choose to join the military and they may choose to go fight, but it's the governments, it's these head leaders, the presidents, the whoever, they're the ones that make the rules, and they're the ones that in the end end up killing all these people, you know? And I think that we have to remember the small people that are doing the angel's work, should this guy that you know said, you know, those are the people that are really coming home with all the scars. And we need to be really careful too when we have all these judgments about our Marine, our military guys and gals coming back, because there is traumas, and there's a lot of it, you know, because not only that, maybe you never killed a person, but you might have witnessed people get killed. You might have been one of these new Marines, you just got sent over there and there's babies getting crushed on a fence. Like, that's going to like affect you forever, you know? And people that sit here in their chairs at home and watch it on the TV and be like, oh, you're such a bad person for doing that. You know, it's just like, it's shameful when I hear that kind of stuff, you know?
Is your uncle still with us, Phil?
Yeah, he is actually.
Can I have his name? What's his name?
David Palladino. His name's David too.
David.
Yeah.
This is you. I would not be here as a Vietnamese descendant serving Marines in the infantry if it wasn't for what you and your brothers and sisters did. And I don't know if it means much, but I am eternally grateful.
Wow. We'll have to send this to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well, okay. So we're going to run out of time here, which I hate to say with you because I'd love to chat with you forever.
Yeah.
Please tell people what you're doing so that we can get as much help as
we want to help. We want
to help.
our audience,
people
who has
to help and
always been very giving and gracious, to be able to help as well.
So just leaving it off with just a quote from what some of the discussions have brought is, and I heard from the guys coming across, is Afghanistan is not the land, Afghanistan is the people. It sounds a little cliche, but when the people come here, they still have pride and there's still hope in their hearts for it, and they're ready to work in America. And these are hard workers. So what I'm doing, and again, it's a very unique, I'm not a nonprofit, I'm not anything else. I have 3 brothers. I have an interpreter and 2 Afghan military brothers that I am very close to. One of them, you could read their stories on the fundraiser that I put up with Give Butter. And the link is in my Instagram. And we could tag all that, right, Hill?
Yep.
And but I'm raising money for their families in particular. Just it. So one family of 4, one family of 7, to include a mother. They helped her out, and then one family of 6. And you can see, I put together a video where you can see all the kids and everything else. And you're like, well, why am I giving to this guy? And he's just off of my word and off of what the Lampers say, like I'm basically going to get that entire purse, split it in 3, and give it to them as cash so they could start a new life. And that's it. There's nothing fancy, no organizations. If you do want to contribute to the masses as a whole, find those governmental supported refugee organizations and give to those organizations, because eventually that's what the Phams experience. Like, we didn't have anybody over here. Those refugee organizations is ones that saved us. And then another, to close off for me, another amazing quote that I heard was, help pave the road for some who will pave the road for many. And that is what I see, because my 3 guys are leaders. Like, they're incredible. You heard his voice talking about serving others. I mean, this guy, he's telling me, I'm like, hey, go to Virginia. There's jobs there. He's like, I think I'm going to go to Texas because my other brothers are going there and I speak English better than they do, and I'm going to help them. So he's sacrificing a job that I could get from in Virginia so that he could go to Texas, where he'll be with many other people, just so that he could be with others, right? So help pave the road for some who will help pave the road for many. And I hope people.
And I want to say that you only have a $15,000 limit. So Americans out there who are like, I can't contribute, David is talking about supporting more, like almost 20 people for $15,000. Okay. We need to blow that up, because can you imagine a whole family of 7 with $5,000? That's nothing. That's not that much money. To them it is, but we live in the United States of America. We know how expensive it is here. So my hope is that we can spread the word and we can get you more than your very, very, I think that offer is so generous, but I think we can do better than that, because as Americans, we know what it takes to move forward. And there is a lot of people out there right now. Every single person that's listening to this can afford $5, because I guarantee you spent $5 on something today. Maybe a tank of gas. Maybe you can pay for a tank of gas. Like, I don't know. And I don't want to be pushy about this, but oh my gosh, like, it's important. It's really important. And that's why I wanted to get you on this podcast. And that's why this is the first podcast we've done in months. But I think the state of the world right now is we all really need each other. There's a lot of stress going on. There is a lot of freedoms that are, I don't even know what's going on right now in the United States and around the world, but it's becoming sometimes a different place. So I think the positivity of seeing something like this, like, hopefully we can spread the love a little bit.
That's it.
Last words, David?
I truly appreciate his generosity, and I love everybody out there, and I love y'all as Lampers, and I'm truly grateful for your friendship and your family and just everything. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on here, Dave, and sharing your story. Number one, I think we were blessed to meet you at a summit, as well as everybody else, all the attendees that got to meet you there. Like I said, our good friends Joe and Emily, they got to meet you, and they're blown away with your positivity and your work ethic. And
Yeah, it's definitely
even like I said in the
contagious.
beginning, the Mountain Tough guys that ran that workout that you were a part of, they were like, that guy, you saw his team, you saw why his
He's a
team crushed
leader.
it. That guy's a leader.
Yeah.
So it's great to watch. I appreciate everything you've done.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Well, we're going to help you out with this. I'm so
I
glad
will.
you came on. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks, David.
Bye. Love you.
Love you.